old surfaces. Call the Concrete Wizard for free design consultations, free estimates, and fast professional concrete resurfacing. And visit theconcretewizard.com for ideas from other before and after photos.
VTR in Sports, powered by ESPN Radio. The games play here. NFL action this week kicks off on Thursday as the Raiders take on the Broncos at 8 p.m. after Tech Talk Live. Then Sunday, 4 big games. Falcons at Colts in Munich. Then Patriots at Bucks, Rams at 49ers, and Steelers at Chargers on Sunday Night Football. Plus, don't forget Monday, we'll have Eagles at Packers. Catch the NFL on VTR in Sports, powered by ESPN Radio, 93.3 FM, 1320 AM, the VTR in Sports app, and on your smart speaker, open VTR in Sports.
Do you want to experience the benefit of radio and digital advertising for your business, but have no or limited funds to advertise? Let us tell you about InsaneRadioDeals.com. No cash needed. We will advertise your business on our 8 over-the-air AM and FM stations and our digital platforms that distribute out news talk, sports, and classic hits in exchange for gift cards, tickets, or experiences that will be used for your business. This allows you to advertise across the entire Virginia Talk Radio network without any cash needed and to generate a large amount of new business. Last year, we started over 900,000 streams on our online platforms, so VTRN and InsaneRadioDeals.com is the place where your business gets heard. Want to learn more? Call Melinda 434-534-8500 or email info@VirginiaTalkRadioNetwork.com.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
So many of our glorious audience members out there, and we love all of you, but especially those that are a little bit on the more mature side, people who've been around for a while, might remember one of the most, I'll just call it what it is, ridiculous promotional ideas imaginable. The new Galenium. I don't know if you were old enough to remember this, TJ, or not. How old were you at the turn of the century? 1999 to 2000, 2001.
4 years old.
Okay, so I would say it's doubtful that you remember this, but maybe not impossible. The Virginia Cavaliers had what was perhaps one of the cheesiest, most absurd marketing concepts. And look, give them credit. They found a way to bring attendance. There's even the possibility that Saturday night's game against Wake Forest might be a sellout. But here's the thing. Football game against Wake Forest. They had plenty of basketball. But they've had some cheesy ideas. Remember the closing of U-Haul, Virginia fans, where they had like the basketball that was paraded around, even though it was just the last basketball that was used at U-Haul.
Yeah.
They paraded it around. Of course, at that point, everyone was oblivious. They were about to hire, at the time, and with all due respect to Terry Holler, I think Tony Bennett is the more accomplished coach in Virginia history. You could debate that. Final Fours, more of them, but Tony Bennett brought a national championship to Virginia, and one of the biggest stories and certainly a great run of success. But the big marketing slogan was the new Galenium, in honor of Pete Gillen, the new Gillen Eum. I mean, it is that and the U-Haul closure are the height of cheesy marketing ploys. Now Liberty is trying their own version of the new Galenium. Granted, this is not receiving a ton of fanfare in terms of the era, if you will, but people are enamored with this. And I think part of it is there is a faction of people that will support, if not everything about Liberty, even if they don't like Liberty, they'll support Liberty Flames men's basketball because there are so many similarities, starting with the obvious connection of Richie McKay having coached at Liberty, left to be on Tony Bennett's staff at Virginia, came back to Liberty, but still having very deep and very close ties between McKay and Bennett. But the GM, Stelios Suzukis, was on Bennett's staff. He's now at Liberty. other people have been around both programs regularly. And the latest is Anthony Gill, who played for Bennett at Virginia, not Pete Gillen. Let's clarify that. He has now come back to Liberty in a new role with the Flames. And I get it when Richie McKay said, when he spoke with the media yesterday about this, that the joy of bringing Anthony Gill back into the program, but back into his orbit in a capacity where he can be a part of what is being built in the Bennett McKay tree, if you will. There's obviously a joy in an affinity between the Bennett side and the McKay side.
Let me just tell you the joy that fills my heart with the addition of AG in our basketball family is immense. Like he and Jenna, his wife, like it's why you coach, guys. Like to have the quality of relationship that AG and I share, and our families do life together, and to have him come on board, and again he acquiesced my request to do it in any form possible.
And it's obvious that, there's clearly a bond. Some of this, there are a bunch of reasons for it. I genuinely believe Bennett and McKay are part of, and they're not the only ones, but there are a lot of coaches where it's about wins and losses, and it has more of a business transactional feel. And plenty of players want that, probably more than ever to an extent when you have a chance to capitalize off of your monetary earning opportunities. Pay for play, let's call it what it is. But granted, the Bennett McKay era at its height was not in the pay for play era, at least above board. Not that it never happened, but above board, it was not really a big deal. But I think there's other factors. I do believe faith plays a role in it. Not everybody that's come through Liberty or Virginia have been outspoken about their faith, but certainly if you're along the lines with Tony Bennett or Richie McKay, you've heard those coaches themselves and plenty of people around them share that type of bond and communal connection. And the Christian faith for them plays a role, much like I think on the BYU tree, all started with Lavelle Edwards, the former BYU football coach, but it's extended to other parameters of BYU athletics and BYU in general. Andy Reid's part of that tree. BYU's Kalani Sitake is part of that tree. He'll kick off our triple header of college football this Saturday, 11:30 a.m. with BYU at Texas Tech, followed by Oregon at Iowa, and then the nightcapper LSU. May they get the Brian Kelly, he's finally gone bump against the Alabama Crimson Tide. VTR and Sports app, by the way, for free for all of those games, unlike the carriage dispute that's going on now between Alphabet and Disney, the billionaires and the trillionaires arguing over money. And the regular people that are like thousandaires, us, get caught, or hundredaires, if you will, get caught in the middle of it. Don't worry. Don't worry about that. Just download the VTR and Sports app and listen to games for free, or do it on 93.3 FM. But anyway, there's a joy about that. And I think there's a bond and connection clearly between that tree. But the other part is you're not going to just hire anybody and everybody, especially if they're currently playing basketball, which Anthony Gill is. He is not going to be on grounds regularly. Or let me phrase this. This isn't Virginia. He's not going to be on campus at Liberty regularly. He still has got a basketball career. But the obvious part is, and Liberty does rev share. I know they're in a very healthy spot relative to their competition in Group of Five football or non-Power 6 basketball. I lump the A-10 in there, but I think certainly you have to put the Big East and the power programs in basketball as well, given what they're paying, in addition to the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10. But there's a part of it where you still want culture fits, particularly if you're at a place like Liberty where you can partake in rev share, but money is not the number one driving factor of people coming to Liberty in most situations, which is why this is something that seems like it would clearly be appealing to Richie McKay.
Honestly, he'll serve mostly in a mentorship role, having a young man who really did have to go the hard road in order to get to the NBA. I mean, I remember when he sat out his first year at UVA after transferring from South Carolina, he was rehabbing an injury. Then he came back. He was frustrated about maybe a limited role or not having as much opportunity to dream his biggest dreams. And he stayed the course. He modeled what it means to experience delayed gratification. Like he just kept doing what he was asked of. He gave the team what they needed.
And that's a big thing. But the delayed gratification part gave the team what they needed. Look, if you're going to stick around, probably if you're ever going to enter those programs, that's something that they look for. Like there is an element of vetting the right players. And the obvious example of it for Liberty is the fact that they've kept Colin Porter and Kaden Matheny around, who are as talented as they are. But the gripe has generally been the fact that those two are under 6 feet tall, and people would like them to be taller, even though people often forget that if Porter and Matheny were taller, they'd be getting a lot more money thrown at them, and they might be tempted to go into the transfer portal for deals that just are so financially lucrative for players that are unlikely to make extensive professional careers that you can't pass it up. Like, there is something that fans just clearly forget about that reality. But there is something about this with Liberty as well, where you're bringing players around, you want them that are teammates, and frankly, you're going to get some Power 5 bounce back basketball players if you're Liberty. You know, Ryan Jones is the example from Virginia Tech that came into Liberty, bounced back from a power program, the latest example. But Isaiah Enan and Josh Smith, who battled injuries, neither of whom played against Kentucky Christian, status to be determined in the Field of 68 event this coming weekend. But that elite teammate part is something that's crucial, and why it just makes so much sense in the world that Anthony Gill, even though he's not going to be on campus regularly, is going to be in a spot where he is a resource for Liberty basketball and someone on whom the current Flames players can consult.
His person and playing career will be exemplary in terms of what our guys get to experience. And having been to, I think, 4 different countries in order to get to the NBA, and now literally, I'll say the best description I can say about him, he's the best teammate that I've ever seen. And it started at UVA, and now you could go and talk to any Washington Wizards player or people that have experienced him, and you can watch the games. Like, what he does is uncommon. So the fact that he's agreed to be a part of Liberty and its mission in our basketball program, huge win for us.
You know, I do agree with that. You know, it's part of the cultural aspect. If Liberty did not bring in Anthony Gill, I don't think it would have drastic impacts on, it's going to, let's use a betting parlance for a second. It would not move Liberty's win total, by 3 games this year, either direction, because Anthony Gill is or is not at Liberty. But there are valuable parts where if you hit a rough patch, it might prevent it from spiraling out of control. When players need someone with whom they can consult, who has still got cachet having been in the NBA. And I get it, he's not a star in the NBA, but let's keep it real here. With all due respect, and I know Talon Peters' story is great, he was fantastic at Liberty. He's not a star in the NBA, and I don't think most people believe Peter is going to be this major all-star caliber player in the NBA. That's not generally who's walking through the door at Liberty. You're going to have more people walking through the door at Liberty that may want to get to the NBA, but their path by sticking in the league is probably going to be in some kind of a role capacity like Anthony Gill. It's less likely Liberty's going to be getting the cutout ready-made out of high school or to the pros all-stars. Not saying it may never happen. Heck, BYU, kind of the Mormon version of Liberty, have found a way to bring in a lot of elite talent. AJ DeBansa, one of the top 3 players in the draft in basketball, whether it's Peterson or Kansas, Boozer from Duke. They're kind of all clustered at the top. And that guy would have never gone to BYU until NIL became a thing, and the LDS and the whole Mormon grouping backed it. I could easily see a scenario where Liberty gets on that train for any athletic endeavor, much like BYU is with LDS, and obviously Notre Dame is done with college football in particular. Like, it's not impossible to foresee that happening. But if you're even going to go down that road, Richie McKay, there's a cultural part that he wants, and I think people at Liberty are willing to accept. Not to mention the fact that you're in Conference USA. You're not in the Big 12 premier basketball conference that BYU resides. You don't get to stash your programs in the ACC while being independent in football to everyone's dismay, except part of Notre Dame's fan base, the way that the Irish get to do. Like, it's not that reality. But for Liberty, you're bringing on that role, and you have to understand that. And I do believe there's something. People have put this out there at Fastlane, Edlane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we don't have a chance for a full level of fan feedback. I know we need to get to more of that. It's going to be in the next couple of weeks. And some of this, especially the Hugh Freeze Liberty stuff, I don't think that's ever going to go away for a while at least. So that's the type of stuff that's kind of evergreen, to be honest, and we may get to it next week and maybe a while from now. But I firmly believe, we've seen this with Richie McKay, where you'll keep players around in advisory roles, then they become assistant coaches, or they come up with some other title. Kyle Rhodes, the latest example. Maya Baxter-Bell was in this category for Liberty. Now it's Anthony Gill. And are they seeding him for future roles? Richie McKay did not come anything close to dismissing that when asked about it yesterday.
Yeah, well, we always say, like, family's not just represented in your blood relatives, but anyone that loves you unconditionally. So I think our program is pursuant of that unconditional love to not only extend it, but to receive it. And if it's true, you can never give away what you don't possess. Like, I hope I possess that sense of unconditional love and grace and family to all the people that come through our doors. So AG is someone that I know has a historical representation of that. And again, it's not unlike some of the people that have donned our uniforms. It's why I think Liberty is such a unique place, and why I hope we can continue to grow together.
And, I mean, that reality is continue to grow together at the very end. It is an implicit, and I'm reading into this, I understand that. But again, there's no outright dismissal of, well, would you consider bringing on Anthony Gill in a larger capacity when his playing career is done? I mean, clearly the door is being left open, and by just creating this role. But that being said, I think it's a smart move for Liberty. It's a good move to have somebody like this around because, again, basketball players coming through Liberty are much more likely to take the Talon Peter, Anthony Gill route into the NBA than, let's use a Virginia parallel. They're probably not going to get a DeAndre Hunter caliber player to Virginia. That's a top 100 recruit. They might get him to Liberty, but it's a short period. They may transfer up. Odds are you're going to be getting more of the role players that stick around, and therefore building ties to that, but guys that still have professional, including NBA tenure, especially with the younger generation where they can go, hey, he is playing in the association. That is the relatability factor that makes a lot of sense. Much like it makes a lot of sense for you to shop and save at the same time at InsaneRadioDeals.com. You going to join me for the Star City Half Marathon and 10K? You could pay full price, and it goes to a great cause. Virginia Amateur Sports does so much for health in our community. But you could also enter it for over 40% off the list price of what it normally would be at InsaneRadioDeals.com. That's not all. Food places. You love the Yard on 5th Street, TJ.
Yeah.
Oliver's. I think you and your girlfriend, your fiance, didn't y'all go there recently?
Yes, we did. Greatest smash burgers in town.
You loved Oliver's on Rivermont.
Yeah.
And it's under new management. That's why the order was good and exactly as it looked on the menu. Seems to have been a problem before, but voila, under new ownership and management, it seemed like it was. How was the service there, by the way?
The service was good. The service was really good. Waitresses were really kind. Food was fast. We never went long without drinks. Let's just say that.
If you want to get some love, a little extra off those food orders, it starts at InsaneRadioDeals.com.
And we got the cheapest place to get Liberty tickets. Nowhere else are you going to find tickets for $20.
And
Geek, not even the Liberty Flames website.
No, that's us. InsaneRadioDeals.com. Missouri State, Kennesaw State. Only a couple of home games left. Weather's supposed to be great over at Williams Stadium this weekend. I will be over there. Are you going to be there, TJ? Or are you going somewhere else?
I'm working Mission Barbecue, and then I'm going to UVA and Wake.
Oh, so UVA Wake is your game.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
We, by the way, need to discuss what the plans are for next week, and there are a number of games on the horizon.
I agree.
Ty is possibly going to one. You may go to one. Yeah. I may go to one, and we haven't communicated. That's a problem. Speaking of problems, there's no other way to segue into this, but some sad news to kick off the Fast Five at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
I know we say this all the time, but it just bears repeating anytime this news arises. That suicide is part of mental health and mental illness. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but everybody hits patches that are rough in their life. And some people, that's the route they go. And it's sad because it prevents them from being the story of somebody that was able to bounce back from that. But it's a reality in this day and age. First of all, I give a lot of credit to the fact that the news has come out today that this morning, Marshawn Kneeland, former Dallas Cowboys defensive end, was found dead early Thursday morning from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound after crashing his vehicle following a police chase. And this comes after, at the beginning of the year, former LSU wide receiver Kyron Lacey also basically was involved in the same situation. He was wanted. Lacey was. I don't know if Kneeland was or not, but no matter how low it gets, I mean, think about this. Jalen Carter, I'll use him as an example, and thank God he's still with us and has apparently battled through his own adversity of the self-inflicted situation with the drag racing and the staffer and the fellow teammate at Georgia dying because they were drag racing. But that's a bad situation, and he was able to get out of it. And yet, even though athletes have access to legal consultants, agencies, people that will do more to get them out of these situations, never underestimate the grip that mental health and the depression can have on somebody to put them in a spot where, even though Marshawn Kneeland, an active NFL player for the Dallas Cowboys, who would have all the resources to get out of any kind of traffic situation or whatever may have been in his car or what may have transpired that caused him to flee from the police during a police chase. Or similarly with Kyron Lacey as well, the former LSU wide receiver. There's so much on their plate, and so many people have something to gain by helping them. And a lot of athletes are aware of this, and maybe they were. Never underestimate the fact that mental health can grip someone that badly that they still overlook the fact that there's a lot of resources to help pull these athletes and people out of a desperate situation. That's why it's just worth acknowledging it. And I give a lot of credit to the fact that those around the Cowboys and the Marshawn Nealon family have gone out, and that reports have gotten out about what transpired. Again, it's sensitive. I think you should always be sensitive to the families in these cases. But from situations like this, or other areas where people die unexpectedly, overdose, the most common example, when you can put that out there, it might help somebody. And even if it only helps one person, it can make such a difference. And that's why it's so powerful, as sad of a day as it is in the NFL for the Dallas Cowboys. Meanwhile, there's no easy way to transition out of that, but we will stick with the Dallas Cowboys. In
Number 4.
Rumors came out over a month ago, really 2 months ago, that Jerry Jones told New York reporter Gary Myers from ESPN New York that the Jets actually were the recipient of a phone call to see if they wanted to trade Micah Parsons to the Jets in exchange for Quinnen Williams. Obviously, Dallas seemed like they got a better offer from the Green Bay Packers, although if I'm Dallas, I would have preferred to trade him to the AFC, especially to the Jets, because, let's keep it real here. If you're the Cowboys, you're probably not going to have to see him but once every 4 years, because, if you think the Cowboys situation seems dire, try being in the Jets situation from a win-loss perspective. Hey, to at least their credit, as West Coast super fan Ben seems to be applauding, as he mentioned at Fastlane, Edlane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, there's a lot of approval that this is the direction the Jets are going. They're just starting to sell off assets and admit they need to rebuild, and maybe start with finding a quarterback and having assets that can get them to that. But I just find it fascinating. The Cowboys ultimately went after Quinnen Williams. I'm in the minority. I think there's enough meat left on the bone of Quinnen Williams that he's a top-end defensive tackle, maybe not to the level of Micah Parsons, or to the level of some of the other best defensive tackles in the NFL right now. Carter in Philadelphia, Simmons in Tennessee, and then Chris Jones, obviously, with Kansas City. But he still is a premier talent at a premier position. But I found that story to clearly be fascinating. Meanwhile, other stories in
Number 3.
Miami leads the ACC in cumulative viewership through week 10 of the college football season. It's just amazing. And I'm not saying Miami would not look to get out of the ACC, but Miami, even though they've slipped the last couple of weeks and really are on the outside looking at the college football playoff, it's amazing because Miami, they could have easily been in a spot where, they even did more if they were able to win games over the course of the season. But despite the fact that everyone knows what happens with the Hurricanes, there's such brand power and brand cachet with them that goes forward that has gotten them to where they are the ACC's leader in terms of viewership through this season, and therefore positioning themselves to receive a lot of the windfall of the new ACC revenue distribution model, much to the chagrin of Florida State and Clemson. Meanwhile, in
Number 2.
Penn Entertainment and ESPN have mutually agreed to end their termination as ESPN Bet, being affiliated with Penn Bet. So it'll go back to being Penn Bet in some capacity, and they might partner with some other entity. I just wonder, a year basically after this deal was consummated, and now it's gone the other way, is there some level of pressure that has been brought on ESPN by their partners, but particularly the NBA? I'm just curious about that. Because in the wake of betting, in the wake of where everything has gone, it seems like it's a fair and valid question. I think we'll get more over time. I'd expect your sports media experts, your Richard Deitches, your Andrew Marchands, your John Orans, the people that real Austin Karp of Sports Business Journal, that triumvirate, some others are out there as well.
Yeah.
But those people that cover this, well, I'm sure they'll get to the bottom of this. There are enough sources. But I just can't help but wonder whether this is something that, the NBA and or the NFL said, hey, we'd prefer if you get out of this business, at least in terms of operating your own sports.
Well, they didn't listen because they signed with DraftKings.
ESPN.
Yes.
Thank you for that, which is interesting.
Here, ESPN PR just announced it.
Well, thank you for that.
Yes,
Breaking
sir.
news. Look at you, TJ Wilkerson. Meanwhile, when it comes to betting, we get to that in.
Number 1.
Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney has shredded officials, saying, quote, in the meantime, we've got gambling issues going on, people being suspended, all that stuff, right? Yep. Refs are people too. It ain't just coaches and players. And if they're part of the game, referees, then by God, they ought to be part of the game, and they ought to be a part of the accountability, and they ought to be part of the consequences, not just behind some shadowy curtain. No, they ought to have an answer for what transpires, end quote. I actually am on board with Dabo in this. I know he complains about the system and the way things are now versus the way they used to be, but it's the right move, I would say. There needs to be some greater level of accountability, even if it's like in professional sports where officials answer, one official answers to a group or a couple of reporters, not all of them, but a couple of reporters, a pool reporter, if you will, who does it on behalf of the reporters after the game to ask about these situations or making officials more prevalent. This is not just an ACC problem. It's a college sports situation.
Can we do it to the officials who officiated Texas and Duke on Tuesday night? Because that was horrid.
That's a great question and something that we might discuss next with Thom Brennaman, who has seen the Hoos and the Hokies a lot this year for the CW. He'll join us next in the Fast Lane. We'll ask him about that, his impressions of both of those teams, and how Tony Elliott is handling the college football playoff talk with Virginia. All of that when we return here in the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app and as that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
It's so worth the drive to big savings at the used car superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Shop local and save more with exceptional service and selection. Your search stops here with over 900 pre-owned vehicles to choose from, plus a huge selection of new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru, Kia, Chevrolet, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. 11 new car brands, 900 used vehicles, all in one location. The Sheeler Motor Mile gives you more choices with pre-owned cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. More than any other dealer in the area, plus exceptional service, selection, savings, and financing options, and top dollar for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with 11 new car brands and over 900 used vehicles, all in one location. And we're proud to support our local schools and community. The Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier car dealer, locally and family-owned for over 50 years. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real technology so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
Good to great. It's one of the hardest transitions to make. 801 Raw Bar has pulled it off. Their country boil bags have taken the good seafood and flavors from the Bayou region and brought them to the Hill City for a great seafood dish. You can also build your own seafood plates at 801 Raw Bar, featuring fresh shrimp, crabs, scallops, and fish from the Atlantic region. Step back into the relaxing beach house vibe with different regional seafood twists at 801 Raw Bar on Church Street in downtown Lynchburg.
Plenty of large insurance companies know something. If you're injured in an auto accident, it can feel overwhelming. They've defended themselves in thousands of personal injury cases while you've never been there. Thankfully, I have. Hi, I'm Dustin Rosser with Trost Law. I began my legal career defending insurance companies before joining Trost Law. I know how insurance companies think and how to navigate the complex legal system. So if you're injured and need someone to fight for you, just call me at 777-HURT and visit trostlaw.com.
This holiday season, take a step back in time to the heart of the 1940s. Join us at Cedar Oaks Farm in Bedford, Virginia for The Christmas List, a World War II era radio play recorded live to benefit the National Center for Healthy Veterans. Experience the story of the Bedford boys and their last Christmas before shipping out to serve their country. A moving night of laughter, love, and the true spirit of Christmas, featuring live music, classic sound effects, and a full cast performing just like the golden days of radio.
Jing-a-ling, 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 the night is made for sweet romancing. Ha, ho, through the snow we go.
Performances are December 12th and 13th at 7 p.m. and December 14th at 2 p.m. Tickets are on sale now at cedaroaksfarm.com, with proceeds benefiting the National Center for Healthy Veterans. Come share a nostalgic Christmas at Cedar Oaks Farm, where memories, music, and history come alive.
VTRN Sports, powered by ESPN Radio. The games play here. NFL action this week kicks off on Thursday as the Raiders take on the Broncos at 8 p.m. after Tech Talk Live. Then Sunday, 4 big games. Falcons at Colts in Munich. Then Patriots at Bucks, Rams at 49ers, and Steelers at Chargers on Sunday Night Football. Plus, don't forget Monday, we'll have Eagles at Packers. Catch the NFL on VTRN Sports, powered by ESPN Radio, 93.3 FM, 1320 AM, the VTRN Sports app, and on your smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
Hey, this is Kurt Warner, Hall of Fame quarterback, and you're listening to VTRN Sports 93.3 FM and the VTRN Sports app, the home of the NFL all season long.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
He has seen the Who's, he's seen the Hokies, and he now joins us here in the Fast Lane. Friend of ours, we had him on last year. We're glad to be able to catch up with him again this college football season. From the CW, Thom Brennaman back with us once again here in the Fast Lane. Thom, great to be speaking with you. You have seen the Who's, you've seen the Hokies. We'll start with the team you've seen most recently, Virginia Tech. This season got sideways real quick. 0-3 start. They got rid of Coach Brent Pry. Philip Montgomery has taken over. How would you assess the job that Philip Montgomery has done, given how challenging of a card he was dealt?
Well, I think, first of all, nice to talk to you as always, my friend, and it was nice seeing you at the basketball meetings here recently. Look, I think the guy's done a really nice job. I mean, you have to compare it to what it was when he took over. Like you said, they started the season 0-3. Now, look, there's nothing wrong with losing to Vanderbilt, who's turned out to have a really nice team, and South Carolina's a solid, not great, solid team. But then, the ODU thing was just, complete humiliation. I'm not telling anybody there anything they don't know already. So, okay, you start there. You're 0-3. Well, since he's taken over, they're a 500 team. And, the schedule has been, they've played some good teams. They still have some good teams left to play. But I think Philip Montgomery has certainly done a very nice job, and I would not be surprised to see him get another shot as a head coach somewhere. I don't think it's going to be Virginia Tech, but somewhere. He coached at Tulsa for 7 years. He got to 4 bowl games. I think the guy's proven that he's capable of being an excellent Division I head football coach.
It's amazing, really, when you think about how challenging it is, the fact that more players could have opted out but did not.
Yep.
In this day and age. What does it say about Montgomery? What does it say about the culture around Virginia Tech that you know that he's probably not going to be back in Blacksburg? There's going to be a high rate of staff turnover and maybe player turnover as well. But while they have some deficiencies that have obviously popped up over the course of the games and seasons, they're in a lot of these games and clearly are fighting hard.
Well, they lost a lot of players. I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but after he took over, they had some key players that left that program. And then it affects your depth. And so, they may not have been star players, but they were certainly guys that were pretty good football players. And so it hurts your depth. And so, now all of a sudden you're 0-3, you're losing guys, and now your depth is being challenged. So, I just think it says a lot about the culture. I think Virginia Tech is going to be a fantastic job for somebody. I've said all along, it's a phenomenal campus. Great stadium, phenomenal fan support, outstanding facilities. Virginia Tech, and especially with the recruiting in the state of Virginia, and I know they're more than capable of recruiting outside of Virginia, but even in just the state of Virginia, there's so many good players. They used to get a lot of those guys to stay home and play. Some of those guys left and have come back. We've seen that even at UVA to some extent. Some guys left. They came back. There's no reason, in my opinion, that Virginia Tech can't be a top 15 program in the country every single year. They've been there already. Frank Beamer did it. And there's no doubt in my mind that there are brighter days ahead at Virginia Tech.
You took the follow-up question we were going to ask right off of our dome, as Thom Brennaman knows what we were about to ask because he's a professional like that, and he's with us in the Fast Lane. Thom, you mentioned Virginia Tech and the appeal to this situation. What's the dynamic like in Blacksburg, in the building, when you've been over there in terms of understanding changes coming, understanding that this may look entirely different, but yet there is kind of a, seemingly at least, business as usual part to the football operations through the end of this season?
Well, when you walk in there and you come in to meet with a coach, and we're fortunate enough to have that set up ahead of time. And when Virginia Tech's at home, we'll meet with Coach Montgomery and Coach Sekas on a Friday. And, when you go in there this time of the year and all the rumors have started about this coach or that coach, specifically James Franklin rumors, everybody knows about those back your way. you know, you know going in, you're going to have to ask him about the situation, but he brought it up before we ever got to it. He said, look, I don't know if I have a job next year. There are a lot of things that a lot of people around here don't know about, staff, players, everybody. And so he said, we just got to continue to focus on, the old adage, but it's so true for him. It's just try to keep everybody together, pulling on the same end of the rope, try to go out and play the next practice and get guys out there who want to play and get ready for a game, and then go play and do the best that you can. And so, I really applaud all of those guys. And I'm not just talking about Coach Seifkes or Coach Montgomery. All of them. When you get in a situation like this, and I've been around a lot of these, more on the pro level than the college level, but when you get around situations like this where even the strength and conditioning coach or, the assistant strength and conditioning coach to the trainer, all of those people are wondering, hey, is the next guy, whoever that might be, are they going to give him free reign to bring in everybody he wants? Every assistant coach, the strength and conditioning coach, the training staff, you name it. So, look, there are a lot of people around there that have certainly kept grinding for Virginia Tech, and the university should be very proud of those people and the job that they've done just to try and keep on keeping on, for lack of a better term.
Thom Brennaman of the CW is with us in the fast lane. He's seen a lot of Virginia Tech. He's seen a lot of the Virginia Cavaliers, and coming up, he'll actually see a lot of the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Yeah.
You've got them this week against Stanford. You've got them next week at Wake Forest. We'll promote that for a second, then we'll wrap up looking at Virginia football. You've been around Bill Belichick and his operation from your time when you were broadcasting NFL games. How much is that helping you in your preparation, and has that helped you in your broadcast preparation for what to expect and prepare for this coming Saturday and next Saturday?
Well, I always got along with him, Ed. I mean, I didn't do a lot of his games in New England, but I would certainly do maybe one every other year. So I have been around him a number of times. There are a lot of people that are turned off by him that broadcast and work in the pro game. I always got along fine with him. And then I saw him last year when they introduced him. I was doing a basketball game in North Carolina, and they introduced him to the crowd at the Dean Dome, and I had a chance to see him for a few minutes and say hello and chat for a minute before the game. So, look, I mean, he's not the most outgoing guy in the world. It's been a rough year for him. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Not only rough on the field, but I feel like there are a lot of people sort of behind the scenes where it would have never happened in New England. There are a lot of people behind the scenes there at North Carolina that seem like they're really trying to sabotage this guy. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to get people to feel sorry for Bill Belichick. I'm not. But Bill Belichick he's the greatest football coach in the history of the sport. And just because things have gotten off to a bad start at North Carolina doesn't all of a sudden make him an idiot and a bad coach. I very much believe that he will right the ship. They've already got a very good recruiting class coming in. He knows how to evaluate talent. Are there some issues with the general manager there, Michael Lombardi? I don't know. Maybe. But, look, Bill Belichick, he knows what he's doing. As this season has gone on, they have gotten better. They've been humiliated in a lot of games. There's no doubt about it. But their last game, I would say it was the first time all year long. The last two games, they've looked like a real football team. They lost a game against Cal where they should have won the game. The guy fumbled the ball going into the end zone. The next week, they go for the 2-point conversion to try to beat Virginia. They stood toe-to-toe with them the entire game. And then last week, Syracuse is awful this year. But they went up there and they looked like a real team. They threw the ball well. They ran the ball well. Their defense is pretty much, outside of a couple of games, been pretty solid. So I'm looking forward to seeing them the next couple of weeks. I think they're getting better.
That's a fascinating way to also segue into the Virginia Cavaliers as we conclude our chat with Thom Brennaman of the CW, because you saw them in that thriller against Washington State a couple of weeks ago. They've struggled at times, particularly offensively and including after that down in Chapel Hill. How much of that is teams adjusting? How much of it is the offensive line issues that have popped up? What's your assessment of the fact that Virginia, they've struggled, but they've been resilient enough to still keep winning these games?
Well, you're spot on that as far as the word resilient. I mean, this is a bunch that they just find a way to win games, or at least have to this point in the year. I wonder, is it sooner or later going to bite them? And I've wondered the same thing about Georgia Tech all year. Play here, play there, call here, call there. Virginia Tech could have two or three, or Georgia Tech could have two or three losses right now. Well, they lost for the first time last week, and they got bullied by NC State, and I would have never thought that would happen. But Virginia, look, they've got a solid quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. He's a solid quarterback. When he gets hot, he can really get hot. You're right about the challenges on the offensive line. Defensively, they find a way. They don't allow big plays. They try to keep everything in front of them. They find a way to get to the quarterback. They've got some people that are capable of that. I don't think they're a great team. I don't think they're the best team in the ACC. But you have to give it up. They have found a way to beat everybody that they have played in the conference so far. Of course, there's that oddity about the NC State thing early in the year that wasn't a conference game. But they have found a way to continue to go out there every single week and win games. And I think as sports fans, I think we've really lost sight of what an incredible accomplishment that is. You look at teams like this year. You look at Texas A&M. You look at Ohio State. You look at Indiana. For these teams to go out and win games every single week, in most cases, in Ohio State and Indiana's case, they're mauling people seemingly every week. But, hey, look, to go out and win games, I don't care if you win by 2 or you win by 52. I just think it speaks volumes to what you're trying to create. I think Coach Elliott understands a winning culture. Lord knows he was around it forever as a player and an assistant coach at Clemson when they were beating the snot out of everybody every single week. And so, look, the guy knows what winning is all about. It took him a while to get some players in there. They spent some money to go out and get some transfer players that are playing very well for them right now. And again, to repeat, do I think they're a great team? No, I do not. Do I think they're the best team in the ACC? No, I do not. Do I think you give them a lot of credit for what they've done? No doubt about it.
Very patented, very well said. And we'll wrap it up on this one about Virginia with Thom Brennaman of the CW. Tony Elliott, pretty adamant that he wasn't going to watch the college football ranking selection. He asked his players and coaches to not do it, although he mentioned he's not naive to the fact that some of them probably would, and it's almost impossible to stop that. What's your assessment of how they're handling that with the fact that there are a lot more of these made-for-TV events, a.k.a. the college football selection show, to go?
Well, Tony's a beautiful human being. I mean, his whole story, a lot of people up your way know it, growing up homeless with his mom and his sister. I mean, I just think he's one of the most amazing human beings that I've ever met in my life. And I don't say that lightly at all. I think he's an amazing man, and has amazing faith. And, look, he knows you're not telling a bunch of 18 to 23-year-olds that you're expecting them to not watch the college football playoff rankings. I mean, give me a break. Those kids in some form or fashion are getting back to their dorm or their apartment or whatever it might be, and they're checking it out, and they're human beings. They want to know, what do people think about them? And so, I just think no matter what the situation, going back during Tony Elliott's upbringing, when he took over the Virginia job and he had his players that were tragically killed there, the way he got everybody through that whole thing. I mean, this guy is a really impressive guy. He's an excellent coach, and I think he's going to be at UVA for a long time.
Things that Virginia Cavalier fans probably want to hear from Thom Brennaman of the CW, who's generous enough to join us in the fast lane. Thom, thank you as always. We love catching up with you and we'd love to do it again as basketball season approaches.
Love to, Ed. You're the best, my friend. You take care, and if I don't talk to you, have a wonderful Christmas holiday.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year all rolled into one for our guest, Thom Brennaman. When we return, We'll change gears. I love that when we talk NASCAR. Tom Bowles, season recap, NASCAR, all of that when we return in the Fast Lane, VTR and Sports app, 93.3 FM.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Subaru. Love to drive? Then you'll love the all-new 2025 Subaru Wilderness family. These cars are built for adventure with symmetrical all-wheel drive, rugged capability, and legendary Subaru reliability. These stylish vehicles are ready for anything. Plus, every new Subaru we sell comes with an exclusive Terry Promise, a lifetime powertrain warranty. Visit us on Forest Road in Lynchburg or browse our inventory online 24/7 at terrysubaru.com. Terry Subaru. You'll love our cars.
Going once, going twice, gone. This is the last year you can have Terrell E. Mosley install a new qualifying heat pump and get a $2,000 federal tax credit. If your current system is over 10 years old, you should seriously consider updating your system and take advantage of this tax credit. Not to mention, a new, more energy-efficient system will also save you on your electric bill. Call Terrell E. Mosley. It's a free service for them to come and discuss the options available to you. Don't miss out. Call Terrell E. Mosley or visit them at terrellemosley.com.
Is it time for a new place to call home? Moving out on your own? Perhaps your existing lease is up for renewal. Looking for a new roommate? Or maybe you just need a change of scenery. Then you need to check out brownstoneproperties.com. We have Central Virginia's largest selection of apartments, townhomes, and single-family homes. Applying is easy with our online application. Visit us online to begin your search at brownstoneproperties.com.
One of the many things I'm thankful for this year is InsaneRadioDeals.com, because the best deals are all there for you. Liberty Flames football tickets, InsaneRadioDeals.com. Gift cards to Oliver's on Rivermont, Caribbean Jerk Pod, JD's Cafe, downtown Cairo, InsaneRadioDeals.com. Great deals just in time for the holiday season at InsaneRadioDeals.com. Head to the site right now before they run out.
What a way to finish the regular season of Jefferson Forest Cavaliers football, presented by TrostLaw.com. This Friday, November 7th, the Heritage Pioneers visit Sabre Stadium, aiming to spoil senior night. Your Central VA Flooring kickoff show starts at 6:30. Kick at 7 on the Virginia's Talk Station app, 100.9 FM Lynchburg, 95.5 FM Bedford, and Open Virginia Talk Radio Network on your smart speaker. JF Football is also presented by Apple Auto Glass, Impact Church, The Concrete Wizard, Clyde Smith Plumbing, and Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Bedford.
Do you want to experience the benefit of radio and digital advertising for your business, but have no or limited funds to advertise? Let us tell you about InsaneRadioDeals.com. No cash needed. We will advertise your business on our 8 over-the-air AM and FM stations and our digital platforms that distribute out news talk, sports, and classic hits in exchange for gift cards, tickets, or experiences that will be used for your business. This allows you to advertise across the entire Virginia Talk Radio network without any cash needed and to generate a large amount of new business. Last year, we started over 900,000 streams on our online platforms, so VTRN and InsaneRadioDeals.com is the place where your business gets heard. Want to learn more? Call Melinda 434-534-8500 or email info@VirginiaTalkRadioNetwork.com.
Hey gang, this is Bud Foster, former defensive coordinator for the Virginia Tech Hokies. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle BT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Tom Bowles covers NASCAR for Frontstretch.com, and he helps us put a bow, appropriately used since that's part of his last name, on the 2025 NASCAR season. Tom, great to be speaking with you here in the Fast Lane. Overall, NASCAR season in and of itself, there was a dip in the TV ratings, dropped 15% this season, lowest figure on record, 2.5 million viewers. It was the first year of a new TV rights deal. Between that and other situations, notably the criticism around the NASCAR chase, what's the vibe that you're feeling NASCAR needs to address in an offseason where NASCAR might further crimp that vibe?
Well, I think for the first time in a long time, Ed, the lawsuit has been pushed out of public view for at least a couple of days because the playoff system is still front and center. In talking to people today, people that are intimately involved with the sport, people are still hungover over what happened in the Phoenix Raceway finale, hungover with the way that ended even though Kyle Larson is a very deserving champion and certainly won it fair and square according to the rules, how it was all ripped away from Denny Hamlin in the last few laps by that caution flag and by the pit strategy that they chose to have. So how the playoff system is going to be fixed, I think, is still front and center. I think that the days of this current format are done. The chances of this coming back in 26, I don't hear a single thing about this returning, and how NASCAR chooses to revise the system and in what way is going to be the big news that I think we'll see in the next week or two, in the first step toward recapturing that quote unquote vibe, that made NASCAR so great for much of the 1990s and 2000s.
The three most noted playoff format options: the 36 race format back in the olden days. If you bring it back, you've got to do better in the Latford system. If I can't explain it to my mom and wife, it's got to go. But a lot of people like the principle behind it. Then there's the 10 race chase, which was the first iteration. Now, the other option discussed is three races, and then 4 races for the championship round. So still a 10 race chase, but broken up into a much different manner. If you had to peg your percentages, or at least rough guesstimates, where would you be on which formats are in the lead and which ones are in the rear?
Well, in a way, I'm not going to be much help, Ed, because what I want, what I think might happen, and what I'm hearing are all three different things. I think what I've wanted for most of the year is the full season playoff system, or full season system, coming back without a playoff. And that's gained momentum over the course of the year. There are more and more people that want it. I think that there are some downsides that people aren't recognizing. There's a whole reason why we came up with a playoff system in the first place. You think about Matt Kenseth in 2003 winning once. Ryan Newman won 8 times, and Kenseth was the champion. So I agree. You'd have to modify the point system. I think point system gets modified no matter what. What I'm hearing is that we're going to move to a 3-3-4 model, and the 3-3-4 model would really be just a modification of getting rid of the Game 7 moment, right? Like, you move into the round of 8, and then you have 4 races to decide a champion among those 8 drivers. And, that may be where we end up. I think the best compromise may be the 10-race chase. And what we had from 2004 to 2013, some version of that. We've had 10 drivers in that playoff, 12 drivers. Winning meant more toward the end of that 10 years that we had the system. I think that could be a nice compromise, but, I just, something has got to change, right? Like, that's very, very clear. And any of the systems that I just mentioned are better than what we currently have. And I think a vast majority of people, not just in the industry, but in the seats, paying their way to these races, all agree on that.
Tom, we'll ask another multiple choice question for you, as Tom Bowles of Frontstretch.com with us here in the Fast Lane. They are still doing podcasts this week to wrap up the NASCAR season and look toward the offseason. We mentioned it to start our chat with you. The NASCAR TV audience dropped 15% this past season, its lowest figure on record, just 2.5 million viewers for the Cup Series, and not all that far ahead of the Xfinity Series, which actually had a great year on the CW. That's the first year of a new media rights deal. What are the factors, if you had to rank them in terms of that contributed to this? The court issues hanging over the sport, the disdain with the playoff format, the fact that it's fractured in general and there's 5 different places you have to ask fans to go to consume your product, or the fact that you're also factoring in, no matter what you do, going head-to-head with football, and especially the NFL in the fall, is becoming an even more increasingly difficult proposition.
I actually am going to start with football, and I think that's playing more of a role than people realize. I think that in the past, people's strength of loyalty to NASCAR was so high that if they wanted to watch Virginia Tech football, Liberty football, college football, NFL on Sundays, no matter what, they would choose even NASCAR qualifying on Saturdays in some cases over college football. But now the loyalty is not there. And people go, well, I don't feel as strongly about this sport. So once the playoffs come around, I'm really going to focus on my NFL team on Sundays, or on the rare Saturday night race like the Bristol night race or something like that. We're going to just look at primetime college football or follow my favorite college team instead. I think that's playing more of a role, and I think that's been undervalued. But NASCAR is having an effect, because you can't necessarily push positive storylines without focusing on the fact that there's this major lawsuit brewing that could change the course of the sport in just a month or 2 months. Think about what we're dealing with in Major League Baseball right now, Ed, where the Dodgers won this incredibly competitive World Series, one of the best World Series of my lifetime. And the immediate water cooler talk is, well, they better not screw it up in a year when the collective bargaining agreement ends. And that's a year away. You could see the buildup over the course of this year where NASCAR took such a big chunk out of storylines that were happening on the track. Anything Denny Hamlin. Oh, wow, I don't know what's going to happen with that lawsuit. Oh, will NASCAR play it fairly if he makes the championship race? And it leads to conspiracy theories about what happened in the championship race and people not talking about any of the stuff that's happening on the racetrack. So I think those two things make a big difference. I don't think the streaming thing makes as much of a difference because we saw the NFL do that. And you look at Amazon's Thursday night numbers, they dipped in year one, but then they recovered because people learned how to find it. I do think the streaming numbers will improve. And that's where NASCAR had to go long term to capture a younger audience. But those other two factors, they play a big role.
Well, you mentioned the streaming numbers, Tom. Then let's add off of that. Is it even worse? Maybe not the streaming using Amazon Prime, but the fact that you got to deal with NBC, which put a lot of those races on USA Network, and there's a spinoff of NBC. You've got to deal with Fox, and a lot of those races are on FS1, not network TV. How much is that something that NASCAR maybe should have had more airtight in its deal, and that is costing NASCAR in its viewership?
Listen, I think more races on a national network that you could get with rabbit ears is always a good thing, right? Because with all of these chopped up streaming options, it's good to know that something's on NBC every Sunday or on Fox every Sunday and you don't have to search for it. With that said, I truly believe that if you like the product, you're going to go find it. And I think that there's NFL all over the place on a variety of different mediums. And I know a lot of them are on major national network channels. It's not like they're on Fox Sports 1, but people will always find them. People will find the Netflix Christmas game. People ended up finding Amazon Thursday Night Football. They were willing to pay for Amazon on Thursday Night Football. The quality of the product and the excitement over the product, is a direct connection to how hard people are willing to search for said product. And while it would help, I think you have to put a good product out there week in, week out. And I think we've seen with the next gen this year and some of the stuff going on with the playoff system, there were weekends that was a real challenge. There were some really good races in 2025, but there were also a lot of throwaway races that, the sport really, needs to work on taking a hard look at the rules and finding ways to better make those races competitive in 2026.
Tom makes our insight better by bringing it from frontstretch.com to us in the fast lane on W227 BG Timberlake, WBGMA Lynchburg, WMNA Gretna, Danville, Southside, and anywhere you are worldwide on the VTRN Sports app, where we have game streaming for free, so you're not having to deal with ridiculous billionaires and trillionaires fighting over who gets to pay what to be allowed to carry something when it comes to your TV coverage. Figured we'd stick with the theme when it comes to that. And speaking of millionaires, billionaires, and trillionaires, NASCAR reportedly made a profit of over $100 million in 2024, yet you've got race teams struggling financially, including the charts that were released by former Frontstretch reporter Michael Finley and fellow media colleague Bob Pockris over the last week about those profit and losses. How much does that shake up NASCAR and impact where this lawsuit goes whenever it gets settled?
I certainly think it impacts the lawsuit in that it turns more public perception toward the race teams. I don't know a single person that looked over those forums and said, I'm going to be more for NASCAR after seeing what they saw. I think there was definitely some empathy for, some numbers that necessarily weren't going NASCAR's way, but I certainly don't think that the discovery that's being revealed helped their case. It will just make things a little bit murkier if NASCAR ends up winning the case. And fans need to turn around and deal with the fallout of that. And I think that's what the scary part is with this trial. If this goes all the way to trial, Ed, and NASCAR wins the case, 2311 and Front Row Motorsports cease to exist next season. They're going to take those charters and they're going to chop them up and sell them. So there's a lot that can change now between November and January. And if 2311 wins the case and Front Row Motorsports win the case, NASCAR racetracks could be sold to real estate investors. The whole concept of the sport and how it runs financially will be very, very different. So, the Discovery, I don't think looked good for NASCAR's public perception, but, I don't think it really changes the outcome that was always going to be there either way.
Tom, we'll wrap it up on some good news, you would think, for NASCAR. NASCAR and iRacing's new video game, NASCAR 25, topped 100,000 units sold last month alone in October, made it a top 10 bestseller for Xbox and PlayStation. I don't play video games, so it's not really up my alley, but you factor that in with the fact that the streaming season or the streaming portion of the year on Prime TV, the division of Amazon, was also well received. Is there at least some silver lining and good news, particularly NASCAR, not totally losing connection with a younger audience?
I think that's good news. I think that you need to be able to connect the people that are playing that video game and really enjoying it to the actual racing that you see on Sundays. And the iRacing world is a little bit different, as we've seen, than the actual real-life NASCAR world. Some of the iRacing numbers that we saw during COVID, you saw how those faded. And you have to get the kids playing video games to also tune into the real thing. And I think that's going to be the big challenge. I think it's easier in F1's Drive to Survive land to build those personalities than to have people follow those personalities during the race on Sunday. It's a lot harder to take your excitement over a video game and take extra time after playing that video game to see the real thing played.
We get to see the real thing, the insight that is at frontstretch.com, and listen to it on the Front Stretch Happy Hour podcast, however you consume your podcasts. And we get the insight from Thom Bowles here in the Fast Lane. Tom, great to chat with you. We really appreciate your time. Enjoy the offseason, however it goes, especially with, well, let's be real here, NASCAR looming over everything.
Absolutely. You enjoy the offseason too. We'll talk real soon.
Thom Bowles with us here in the Fast Lane. That is how we wrap things up today. We appreciate his time. We appreciate yours. Tomorrow, TJ hosting the Fast Lane, 5 to 6 p.m. VTR and Sports app, 93.3 FM. Now, on to Freddie and Harry on ESPN Radio before we give way to Tech Talk Live and then Thursday Night Football, which you can hear for free on VTR and Sports, 93.3 FM in the greater Lynchburg area, the VTR and Sports app.
This organization as a CEO of the Raiders. She's now a CBS Sports NFL analyst.